Happening right now, rescue crews are searching for 7 still missing after tornadoes wreaked havoc in a North Texas town last night. They left 6 dead. I'm Rahman Johnson, and this is Bounce News at 7. Now, the National Weather Service has reported at least 10 tornadoes touched down last night, and officials are finding damage indicating an EF4 tornado struck. Now, that's the second most severe classification on a scale of 0 to 5. Emergency officials are sifting through the damage of a Habitat for Humanity neighborhood, most of which was destroyed. And that's where the still missing were last seen. Now, joining us tonight is Chief Meteorologist Casanova Nurse. And Casanova, these tornadoes were just horrific. What are the conditions that contributed to having such a severe batch of tornadoes in Texas?
It's not your classic setup. Of course, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, normally known for their tornado activity around this time of year. But yesterday we had a swirl of air in the upper parts of the atmosphere. That gave the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is near where some of these towns were struck, a little bit of an extra spinning motion in the atmosphere. Now, at the ground level, we had mostly a southeast to east wind. So if you can imagine 2 streams of water going in different directions, when they meet together, it causes a little bit of extra spin. The atmosphere is just like that. We had a little enhancement of that swirling motion, plus you had the moisture and the warmth lifted up into a colder part of the upper atmosphere. The ingredients came together for a tornado outbreak.
10 tornadoes. I mean, it was just something I don't think we've ever seen before. Is this unprecedented? Is this historical to have this many tornadoes in that area in such a small amount of time?
Not necessarily historical. I think in fact, I know we've had broader outbreaks in the past, but it's just the strength of these tornadoes. The assessments are still coming in from surveys from the National Weather Service meteorologists, and to get EF3, EF4, the rating is based on the damage that a tornado causes. And some of these tornadoes were half mile, a mile wide. So you have a massive amount of force and wind going on with these systems. Winds could have easily exceeded a Category 5 hurricane in some of these stronger tornadoes.
Very quickly, is this something that North Texans are going to have to worry about in the near future?
Not likely. Probably not the same sort of element that came together last night, but there will be some more forecasts of severe weather across the midsection of the country, maybe a little more north than Dallas-Fort Worth, but there could be maybe a 3 or 4 day stretch of severe weather in places like Kansas City, perhaps even Chicago, perhaps as far south as Memphis.
Thank you for the information, Casanova Nurse, our chief meteorologist. Our prayers and thoughts go out to all of the families who are affected by those tornadoes. Thanks, Cass.
Sure.
Now, the president is vehemently right now, when we talk about those literal tornadoes to political tornadoes, a storm of political drama is brewing in Washington this week. Now, breaking this afternoon, a second IRS official has resigned due to the revelation that the IRS was targeting conservative groups in Washington. Now, so what do Olivia Pope, the IRS, and the Department of Justice all have in common this week? They're apparently wrought with scandal. Now, the president is vehemently opposing any knowledge of this IRS targeting.
The actions that were described in that IG report are unacceptable. So in addition to making sure that we've got a new acting director there, we're also going to make sure that we gather up the facts and hold accountable and responsible anybody who was involved in this.
Now, the IRS situation is just one of a few challenges facing the Obama administration right now, including new questions about last fall's attack on the U.S. diplomatic post in Benghazi, Libya, and the disclosure that the Justice Department seized phone records of Associated Press reporters and bureaus without their knowledge. Now, as we look into this, tonight we have on the phone with us Washington Insider and the chairman of the National Family Engagement Alliance and author Byron Garrett. And Byron, you've been in Washington around the scene for some time. And when you see all of these situations that the president is going through with these behind the scenes things, what can they do to control these crises that are happening? It seems like tornadoes all at once are converging on the president's administration.
You know, Rockman, and good evening. I think what the president conveyed earlier this afternoon regarding the situation of affairs, and you linked it to the show scandal, and I would tell folks, you know, that is television, and while it seems like it's playing out in real time, the reality is these are critical issues that are before the American public, and it's not new to D.C. in terms of the types of challenges and pressure when you get into a second term. I think the president coming out earlier today and offering a clear and concise response of how best his administration is moving forward and holding those folks accountable is a step in the right direction.
Well, with all of those, let's go specifically with this AP scandal, I think, which is the newest thing. And I know you've been around and seen this for years. What do you take from that the Justice Department is looking over reporter records? Doesn't that kind of infringe on freedom of the press?
Well, and I think it's two pieces there, right? So there's the one side of does it infringe upon freedom of the press, and then there's the second side that most constituents are starting to think about as a citizen in the country. How far does this likely go? And right now, obviously, this is isolated as we know it to the AP. But the reality is, one would have to ask, what's the nature of the information that was required or requested, and what's the validity of that? And I'm sure there will be a series of hearings, as there always are, to begin to ferret through and figure out what was the purpose and why was this a necessary operative move by the administration.
Very quickly, will this in any way, these scandals happening all at the same time, have any issue on clouding the legacy of President Obama?
I don't think it clouds the legacy of President Obama. I think when you look at his first term, the record stands for itself in terms of his accomplishments and where we are with health care, where we've moved with education and race to the top funding to improve the systems. I think it is indicative of a second term where folks are beginning to say, let's plan and strategize now and not waiting until we get to the second or third year of the second term. I think both parties are now on notice saying we need to be planning for what's going to happen at the next election cycle, both the midterms as well as the next presidential election, and that's what you see these movements about.
Gotcha. Such good information. Thanks for joining us again. Byron Garrett, the chair of the National Family Engagement Alliance. More Bounce News Scandal Edition is on the way. We'll be right back. Coming up just ahead tonight on Bounce News at 7, it's all about scandals. We'll take you to a senior living facility in New Jersey where the residents are engaging in more than just arts and crafts. Plus, we'll take a look at what's trending tonight as we get ready for the Scandal season finale. Now, you can keep the conversation going at bouncenews.tv. Your chance to say it and post it is up next. Speaking of scandals, there is a scandal of a different sort in New Jersey. A man and a woman have been arrested for running a prostitution and drug ring out of a senior citizen home. Now, this is 75-year-old James Parham. He was running a prostitution ring, and Cheryl Cheney handled the crack distribution side of the business. Now, they both had young women and considerably older residents of this senior living facility on staff. Now, cops set up a sting after residents complained of loitering and condoms in the common areas. Very interesting. It is indeed a scandal at the senior citizen facility. It's time for Say It and Post It. We've been looking at your tweets and what's trending all day, and it's about the season finale of Scandal. People are extremely excited, and everyone is dying to know, me included, who is the mole. Now, Daniel Alicia says it's like a drug. At Shonda Rhimes is a genius for creating scandal, and at Kerry Washington is awesome. Hashtag, who's the mole? And Classic Sweetie asks, are they finally going to recover the constant heart attacks and let me know who the mole is tonight on the Scandal finale? And then Marie Bailey says, it's a scandalous Thursday. Can't wait for the at Grey's ABC, which is, of course, Grey's Anatomy, and at Scandal ABC 1-2 knockout finales. That's tonight. And scandals, not just for the ladies. Ken Merriweather says, I am too crunk for the Scandal finale. Olivia Pope for First Lady. He uses the hashtag Olivia Pope is my wife. Now, you can use the hashtags Scandal, Who is the Mole, or, of course, Say It and Post It. And we'll be looking for your feedback on Twitter and, of course, on our Facebook, but you can find us at Bounce TV Tally. Now, don't forget, tonight we'll be announcing the winner of our Scandal giveaway tonight on ABC 27 News at 11. Keep the channel on Bounce. We've got more Bounce News just ahead. Coming up just ahead on Bounce News, we'll take a look at some of the most famous political scandals of all time. Plus, we'll chat with best-selling author Mark Little about what goes into a political scandal story. Welcome back. It's Bounce News at 7, Scandal Edition. And, you know, scandal is nothing new to politics. Now, ABC's Scandal just dramatizes it. So let's take a look at some of the most talked about scandals in American history. Scandals have been a part of the American political landscape since the founding of the country. Now, some of them may not be as juicy as Olivia Pope's affair with the president, but they keep us glued to the TV. Let's take a look back at some of the most famous scandals in American history. Now, the first political scandal was thought to be around 1777, just after the founding of the Republic. It was known as the Conway Cable. Now, of course, scandals are all over the place, and that's what we're talking about tonight, Scandal. And joining us tonight to discuss the impact that scandals have on popular culture and ideas about politics is best-selling author Mark Curtis Little, who uses political drama in his own books. Mark, thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Rockman. Thank you very much for having me in the program.
Now, when you look at these scandals that are taking place, can you write the stuff that we've got in the headlines right now?
Well, believe it or not, yes. And it's probably an outgrowth of the social media, because one of the things that I love to do is I like to go on Facebook and Twitter and places like that and just find the stuff, and I read it and I say, oh, this would be juicy, and I write notes. And before you know it, when I'm writing a book, I have some things to reflect upon. And as insane as it may sound, people buy into this because people like to look into the lives of public personalities.
Now, when you're going into and looking at the lives of public personalities, when you look at a show like Scandal, and it's the #1 show in America, obviously tonight, Twitter and Facebook, everything is ablaze about who is the mole and Olivia Pope. What do you make of it being the most popular show when the main character is in an unfaithful relationship with the president?
Well, think about this. You remember when soap operas, before we had so many reality shows and everything, think about the popularity of soap operas. And if you look at the nighttime soaps that came at the end of the 70s, the Flamingo Road, and you had Dallas, and you had Dynasty, that's what Scandal is. Scandal is an outgrowth of those shows that were on when media was smaller. Now it's larger, but they up the ante more. Instead of just having someone sleeping with the neighbor, they've got someone sleeping with the president, and so that is enticing to look at every day. And it also says something about the lives of the people who are watching these shows so much.
Let's take a look real quick and forecast into the future. If Fitz was really the president and this show was real, could his presidency survive something like this, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, Rockman, it's kind of hard to believe that someone can walk into the Oval Office and not be detected and all the stuff that they're doing, even though they're just kissing and groping. And then the president is calling on the phone while he's talking to her on the cell phone. Believe me, somebody knows who he's talking to. So that's ludicrous right there in and of itself. But to answer your question, I don't think so. But then again, I don't know. The American people have tolerated a whole bunch of stuff, and they may just tolerate a president having an affair with somebody.
Mark, thanks so much for joining us, and we're going to be having more behind-the-scenes conversation with you. Now, you can get in touch with Mike at his website, marklittlewrites.com. His newest book is called Magnificent Redemption. More Bounce News is on the way. We'll be right back. Just ahead, we'll take a look at red wine and why it could be one of Olivia Pope's favorite libations, and a relationship expert joins us to talk about infidelity. Keep the conversation going at facebook.com/BounceTV Tallahassee. Now, if you watch Scandal, you know Olivia Pope loves red wine. She's definitely not a cork tease. Now, of course, that's the official term for someone who talks about a great bottle of wine but never opens it. We've pulled together some fun facts about wine. Like, a standard glass of dry red or white wine has about 110 calories, and sweeter wines have more. And I guess it's a good thing that Olivia Pope drinks red wine. Now, women tend to be better wine testers because women, particularly of reproductive ages, have a better sense of smell than men. Red wines are red because they're fermented with the grape skins, and white wines are not. And here's something you may not know. Not all wines improve with time. In fact, most wines are ready to drink, and only a rare few will last longer than a decade. Now, if you're not a Scandal watcher, Olivia Pope, the main character, is not only known for being a political fixer, but she's known for having an extramarital affair with the President of the United States. Now, it seems in the show that Olivia will get her man in the end, but rarely is that the case. In fact, the Squeedo.com article says that only 1% of married men ever leave their wives and go to the other woman. Now, to talk about extramarital relations and what's going on Scandal in that respect, tonight we have Denise Gartrell, a relationship strategist. Denise, how are you?
Fabulous, Rockman. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. And what's the common perception? Of course, they're saying that only 1% of men would ever leave their wives and go to the other woman. But in this case, it seems like Olivia Pope has got her man. Could that happen in real life? What is your experience on that?
Okay, I could not hear the latter part of your question. Can you repeat, Ruckman?
Sure. Olivia Pope, from what we understand, she has got her man. And according to the survey that I saw, it said only 1% of husbands actually leave their wives and go to the other woman. What do you think about that? How does that affect the spouse?
Well, that affects the spouse tremendously, but I think that because affairs occur for many reasons other than an emotional bond, a lot of times males are not going outside of their marriages to establish anything emotional with that external partner, and that can be very devastating to that external individual as well. But the mere fact that you can still have love for your spouse, even though you're seeking an affair for different reasons.
And I guess the million-dollar question would be, again, this is something I've seen right now on Twitter. People are saying that because the president was cheating on Millie or his wife with Olivia, that he would just be unfaithful to Olivia as well. So that's the main question. Is it once a cheater, always a cheater? Can he trust her? Or can she trust him?
Yes. The reason that may be the case is because the reasons that he is cheating with Olivia may not be resolved when he gets into a relationship with Olivia. So there are usually, again, very specific reasons why people have affairs. And usually they have 80% of the time, over 80% of the time, they have nothing to do with the spouse. It's actually something that is driven from that person's internal needs.
If you find yourself in a situation like this, what is the best advice you can give? Sometimes, again, there are people who this story is ringing true for their lives, obviously not with the president, but with them being in a duplicitous relationship. When things like this happen, what is your best advice for someone who's in a relationship like this?
For the person who is causing the infidelity, or for the person who is affected by it?
The person who's causing the infidelity.
The person who's causing the infidelity basically needs to look at the reasons that they're doing this. Sometimes infidelity occurs because that person is actually trying to avoid any type of emotional attachment with their spouse.
Wow.
So sometimes that is very scary. And then when they basically distance themselves emotionally from the spouse, then they actually come back to the relationship or to the marriage, and then they no longer have the affairs. So they may go in and out of these types of situations basically because they are fearful of an emotional attachment. Very
interesting. Well, we'll see what happens tonight. Thanks so much for joining us, Denise Gartrell, relationship strategist. We'll be right back with more Bounce News just ahead. Coming up just ahead on Bounce, it's all about keeping yourself out of a scandal. Your best life is on the way. Follow us on Twitter to keep the conversation going at Bounce TV Talent. Tonight in Your Best Life, some tips for avoiding a scandal. Now, former Missouri State Senator who was embroiled in political scandals, Jeff Smith, is now professor of public policy. He says that authenticity is the way. Now, Senator Smith says that first and foremost, be truthful and be authentic. People see through the lies. Just fess up. Get it out there, tell the truth, and make it happen. It's not like deceiving people will get you anywhere. We all remember former Congressman Anthony Weiner, who claimed that his Twitter account was hacked. Senator Smith says that if you just come clean up front and be willing to move on, others will too. Now, basically, the best way to avoid starring in your own scandal is by first and foremost living authentically. And that is another key to living your best life. Now, let's take a look at social media and see what's trending. And of course, it's Scandal. Now, don't forget, you can join us for Scandal on our sister station, WTXL ABC 27. And then after the show on ABC 27 News at 11 with Mika Highsmith. Have a good night.